con noi un ospite super speciale, infatti siamo con LAINI l'autrice del Sognatore e la Musa degli Incubi, che sarà disponibile in tutte le librerie dal 14 febbraio, e siamo qui appunto per fare una piccola intervista con l'autrice stessa. Okay, so I have a few questions about Muse of Nightmares. The first is, in Muse of Nightmares we meet two new characters, Cora and Nora. Were they always main characters in your mind, or did you discover their importance while writing The Strange the Dreamer?
Yes, in Strange the Dreamer, a lot of mysteries arise, and when I was trying to figure out the answers, I usually don't know everything at the beginning.
Okay.
I have a situation and I have some idea where it's going, but as I'm writing it, I figure out the answers, and these two characters became entwined. And you may discover that you already know one of them and didn't know that you know.
I'm not finished with Muse of Nightmares yet, but I've read more than half of it, so I kind of know what you're saying.
Okay. but it's so, all the mysteries that come up in Strange the Dreamer, where did the gods come from?
Yes.
What happened to all the other children? Why did Laszlo grow up in a different place? All of those questions are answered by these two characters.
And they're so amazing too, because they're strong women, and I kind of love them already. So.
Yeah, I mean, I love the situation. I think when I was writing the first chapter, and there's not a lot of chapters of them, and each part of the book starts with one chapter, but it easily could have been its own book, just their story, you know. But I had to pull back and not overdo it, you know, just keep it simple, because their story was very appealing to me.
Yes, it is, and you could always write a new book about them.
Yeah.
A novella maybe, or something else.
Yeah, I think it's difficult though when you know what happens to a character to then write sort of the story where the readers already know what's going to happen. Yeah. There's a lot of novellas that I would like to write.
And I'd love to read them all.
Thank you.
Next question is, since Strange the Dreamer was more of a Laszlo story than Sarai and uses Sarai's, will there be more of Spero, Ruby, Feral, and Mina in this book, like the Godspan and the Children of the Gods?
More in Muse of Nightmares?
Yeah.
I think that it's about the same amount, you know, that it's really still more about Laszlo and Sarai. The other characters definitely play important roles, especially, you know, and you'll see. I don't want to say, you know, some very important role that one of them especially plays. Well, Minya, I think really I discovered as I was writing the book that Minya is sort of the emotional heart of the story, and I did not expect that.
She's my favorite too.
I'm so glad. I think a lot of people in Strange the Dreamer tell me, I hate Minya, and I'm like,
yeah, but I understand her. Like, I empathize with her so much. So
yeah, I mean, she definitely represents for me, you know, surviving trauma.
Yes.
Trauma survivors in the strength, and can somebody who's forged by severe childhood trauma possibly be saved? And really the question for me in this book, in the Muse of Nightmares, well, with Strange, I set out to write a story that had no bad guy. Yeah. And where the main characters can't fight.
True.
and it doesn't have a big action climax, because those were all things I was bored of when I was starting to write it. Like, ugh. There are tropes that I can love and I love again, but at the time I was like, I don't want to do that right now. And so then with Muse of Nightmares, the main thing that I was trying to do was to write a story where killing your enemy will not solve your problems. You have to figure out something else. And so there's several situations in this book where you have to do something else. Like literally killing this person who's your enemy, who may be Minya, it will not help, it will make things worse. And so what can you do? What can you do? And you can't kill your enemy, and you can't change their mind. And it was a very difficult situation. In fact, I didn't know how to solve it. It took a while.
that ties in perfectly with one of the other questions, because as you said, in Strange Dreamer, we don't have a main villain. There's no villain. We have people that have a variety of emotion, human emotion, and we can empathize with mostly all of them, because we have Eric Fane that has his own trauma too, Minya, because they lived the main climax, I think, that was in the past. So was it challenging as a writer to write a book without the villain and discover other means to tell a story without that trope?
I mean, it was a challenging book, but I wouldn't say that that was the reason for it. I was just really fatigued with that story structure. And also, I have a young child, and I think as she's been growing up, I've realized how ingrained in our culture is this simple story structure, having a bad guy and killing them. And I love it when, especially for children, but also in my own books, to find a story that is different from that goes a different way. And there were villains, and we know about them, but they formed the past. And I didn't want to have to dramatize the actions of Scapus and the gods. I didn't want to be there. Like, we know that it happened, but I didn't want to have to describe it happening. You know, I wanted to look at people healing or trying to heal after really terrible trauma or occupation or tyranny, and look at that process, and look at characters who are, from their own point of view, they're all the hero of the story, except for, or in this case, the hero, Errol Flynn, the great hero of his people, is an example of how becoming a hero and the things that you have to do in war can destroy you, and just as much so that yeah, I just wanted to tell a more realistic, version of what people's lives would be like in that situation.
Thank you, because I love that about the books too. Okay, next question. Will we find out more in this second book about the incredible world? Because I love your world building, and the world is so fascinating to me. We see a little bit of it in Laszlo travel to Weep, and will there maybe be a connection with the other series, the other small world?
Well, I think from the beginning in Laszlo, in Strange the Dreamer, you do see some similarities.
Yes.
And there's more. It's more explicit in Muse of Nightmares, though there's no direct crossover. I think you can recognize. And if you have read Daughter of Smoke and Bone, then when you're reading, especially the second half of Muse of Nightmares, I guess I'm comparing it to like you're wearing special glasses that let you see the secret things, because things that other readers would sort of gloss over, you'll realize are really important, or could be setting up a potential. Anyway, it's hard to say.
I found your links so I was hoping for it since reading Strange the Dreamer, because some things like maybe point to it in the first two, so I
So how far have you gotten in without spoilers, obviously? Okay.
Half of it, so I haven't figured out the connection yet.
Okay. So I was going to say, when I started writing Strange the Dreamer, I didn't have that plan, but then there was something that will be revealed to you soon. But once I realized that I had created a multiverse, and why I have all these worlds out there, and why not, why not use one of those worlds? And also, when you see Muse of Nightmares, the printed copy, you'll see that there are some diagrams in there that I can't tell you.
Okay,
I want to tell you things, but it would be spoilers. So
it's fine.
But also, there's a lot of Easter eggs. There's a lot of authors' names that are in the book in
Maybe
code.
I will pick them out.
No, they're not in the book. They'll be in those diagrams.
Okay.
And they're in secret codes, so you have to.
I'll be a detective and try to.
I think there's like 9 or 11 of them. I don't think everyone's gotten them all yet, because some of them are a little bit more
tricky.
Yeah. So.
I'll try.
Okay.
Okay, so in A Strange Dreamer, Sarai can control people's dream. Even if Laszlo seems capable of controlling his own dreams quite well. It looks to me like lucid dreaming. If you could have one of these dreams, what would you do first?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, I think that in writing them, it's sort of, those are the dreams. I mean, for them that I would want to have. For myself, I don't know. No, but I think it would be really wonderful to have that ability to meet. I mean, also be potentially not, because you certainly don't want somebody. It's like having the ability to read minds or have your mind be read. Like, it's risky. But I think that they have so much to be together and be able to create any situation that they want. It was really fun as a writer to explore those situations.
Too, like the dreams and the things that happen. Like most people say they would fly, which is something they do want to do.
Yeah, that happens in all my books too. There's always somebody that wants to fly or have wings. It's like, and so in this case, they got to do it.
Yes, so it's cool. It's a cool thing to live through your characters a little bit.
Definitely, except that most of the time I'm torturing them, but they also get to have fun.
We try to do that.
We have to. It would be very boring if they were happy all the time.
We love the books. for that too, because yeah, they are fantasy, but they're not perfect fantasies. Like,
I mean, nobody would want to read that, you
yeah.
know. But hopefully they can find happiness at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Now a little bit of a more serious question. In Strange Dreamer, an important theme that struck me was racism, and we see how the children are judged not for their personalities, but because of their skin color and the choices of their parents. Was this hard to write about in a young adult novel?
I mean, not exactly in a young adult novel. It's hard to write about in general, but I think that readers of young adult, they can handle any subject. I mean, obviously there's a lot of adults that read it, but even teenagers, they're such savvy, smart readers, and they're dealing with all of these issues, and to try to protect them, I think sometimes adults are a little clueless, thinking they have to protect teenagers that already know so much more than they realize. But I do have a mindfulness of writing for young people that I don't think I should shy away from certain subjects, but present it in a way that's appropriate for people who are forming their opinions, and you know, that's respectful and thoughtful. Yes.
Okay. Was this something you had in mind when writing it? Because I know you have a daughter, so it reads like a fairy tale. Like Stranger Dreamer reads like a fairy tale. It has a message. So was that something you thought about when writing the book?
Well, usually when I start writing, I have a character in a situation, and I'm really not thinking about message or themes at all. It's really just about the character's journey and the conflict, and really just about entertainment. But then I always discover as I'm writing that the themes come through just because they're the things that I'm worried about and that I'm interested in, and so it just presents itself in the story, and then at that point when I recognize it, then I can start to nurture it and make it fit the story better. So, but yeah, I mean, definitely I think that fantasy books are a great way to look at these really important themes, and to present them to readers in a way that maybe they don't even realize that they're reading about, you know,
such important themes.
Yeah,
yes.
And that and yet they're thinking about it and taking it in without yeah.
Yes. And it is important because it's the right age to discover how you think about these things, and they're important things too, because nowadays we would think
that we had left some of that in the past, but no.
It's not. It's
I
really
mean, in the States, it's really so much more in the open than it has ever been, because of our president has encouraged it to come out of the shadows and made it okay to express racism. And these people have found each other and found their voice, and it's gotten worse.
So those books are becoming a light for some people. Like, they make you realize, oh, there's so much more than skin color, and we are all each individuals, and we deserve to be treated like one.
Yeah, and that's, I think, that the basis of all my books is this idea of, can you learn to look at somebody in a new way? Can you learn to look at your enemy and see them as a person instead of as a construct, you know?
Yes, and you did it so amazingly in Strange Dreamer, so thank you. Now, two more fun questions. If the characters from Strange the Dreamer could meet with the characters with the Doors of the who would be best friends, and with whom?
I don't know. I think that Karoo, I have this vision in my mind of Karoo and Sarai meeting, and people ask me often, why blue? Why is everything blue? And I think in that case it's because Karoo came first. She just happened to have blue hair for no reason. But then later, when I was coming up with the color for the God Spawn, there really was no other color that they could be. You know, really it had to be blue. What else would they be? Red, green, and blue was perfect. So I'm like, oh, they're going to ask me why blue, but I have to do it anyway. So I imagine them saying, hey,
they would bond. Yes, they would.
Yeah, but sometimes the characters that are the most fun to write are the best friends. Or something like Susanna and Ruby and Calixte. They're always really fun because they don't have to have the same range, or they don't have to. The book doesn't rest on their emotional growth. They can just be fun. So I can imagine Susanna meeting Calixte, or, for example, or
a lot of them would be friends.
Yeah, I think so.
I think there will be a big group of friends and do everything together. I'd love to see that one day.
Well, let me know when you finish that music maker.
Okay, I will. So now, last question. In Strange Dreamer, some of the characters are sons and daughters of goddesses and gods. So I am immediately associated with another famous series, like the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. So if you could pick their Greek gods or goddesses' parents, which would they be?
Of the characters in the book?
Yeah, like Athena, Mars.
Percy Jackson.
No. They're good. But you can choose, like, if you know mythology at all, like, which of them would fit with whom.
I don't know, I haven't thought about it. What do you think?
Okay, I think Laszlo would be a son of Athena, like, because he
yeah,
loves to read, and they bond over libraries and knowledge, and that'd be perfect.
Okay.
And I think Mina will be the daughter of Mars. Like,
yeah,
they have some similarities. Everything too. Like, he's a great warrior and strategy and all of that. Well, Sarai, I haven't thought about Sarai yet. Like, I don't know which of them will fit.
I don't know. Sarai's harder. Because you can see, if she had gone down the path that Minya intended for her, then she could be more like the daughter of Hades or something like that. But she didn't.
I didn't think about that, but that would
But it didn't work because I think by being inside the mind of her enemy so much, she was unable to become.
So she's a slightly more good daughter of Hades.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for answering my questions and for writing this amazing
pleasure.
E ragazzi, questo è tutto per l'intervista. Io spero che vi sia piaciuta. Ovviamente ci sono i sottotitoli per tutte quante le domande, le risposte, e fatemi sapere giù nei commenti se avete intenzione di comprare la Musa degli Incubi. Spoiler, dovreste, perché sono libri fantastici, e se avete letto Strange Dreamer, il Sognatore, quindi. Il video finisce qui e spero che il video vi sia piaciuto. Noi ci vediamo alla prossima. Ciao ragazzi!